Right, you're welcome back. But just before we go into our talk time discussion, we have reports that the Nigerian Super Falcons have staged a protest to the National Assembly ahead of the budget presentation by the president.
The African women football champions have been protesting against the non-payment of their match bonuses and allowance after they clinched the Women's Nations Cup title for the 8th time.
Is it the 8th time or
Yes,
the 10th time?
it's actually
really?
the 8th time.
Okay. Now, they have since refused to leave their hotel rooms in Abuja, insisting that Sports Ministry must attend to their need. And TVC News correspondent Samna Sambo is at the National Assembly complex where they just staged a protest. Sambo, have they been able to drive home their point? Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to the Breakfast Show team. And good morning to our viewers. The Super Falcons are still at the main entrance to the National Assembly right now. They have not been able to impress it on the senators and the House of Representative members because unfortunately for them, the main gate that they are at the moment is not the main gate where most of these federal lawmakers will be passing through today, because it's a special day because we're having the budget presentation by President Muhammadu Buhari today. They will be mostly passing through the Villa Gate, but the Super Falcons are all out here saying that their major reason for coming out today is to tell Nigerians that this issue is one that must be settled because the Nigerian government has not been able to address the issues of their match bonuses and payments that they were supposed to have been paid. So it remains a very difficult situation as they are appealing to the NFF and other top Nigerians, including the president himself, to address their situation.
All right, Sambo, you said they are not at the gate where the senators will be passing through. So is that to say that they may not likely get the attention of the senators today?
Yes, that is what we journalists were actually telling them too, that they have to conduct themselves very well, because at a point in time, due to the anger, due to the frustration, they were almost feeling, so bad to the extent that they wanted, to put up a behavior that would be uncalled for. So we had to explain to them that they should be calm, they should speak more with journalists and drive home their points, and that most of the TV crews are doing live productions here today because of the budget. And as a result of that, their message will be sent across to Nigerians. And of course, they took heed to that, and they've been very peaceful. They've been able to drive their points, but they insist that they don't want to speak. They said that whatever they want to send as a message to the Nigerian government is on their placards, and of course we read that. Some of the placards read that they wanted that they want the Nigerian government to foot the bills, that they want the imbroglio between the NFF and the Nigerian government to be stopped, that the most important thing is that they shouldn't be removed from their hotels, and then at the same time they need to be given something to be able to take care of all that they've been able to suffer on behalf of the country for. And as it stands right now, this message is going out across the social media, across the TV networks, and even radio networks within the city in Abuja here. And so they are hopeful that by not saying anything, that Nigerians will be able to see these placards and be able to say a lot. And of course, we interviewed so many Nigerians who felt very, very sad. And the Nigerians told us that they don't want whatever the problem is to remain that way. They want the federal government and the NFF to look for an urgent solution to this protest.
All right, Samna Sambo, we do have a report. Let's see what that report says.
Government should listen to them and do what is right to them. We are not a stranger in this country. All of us are Nigerian, and this is our country. We cannot be slaves inside our own country. The NFF is under government, and I believe government have not done anything. That is why NFF is saying there is no money. And these guys have gone out there, they made us proud. They made Nigerians proud. All of us here, we are their fans. We watch them, we clap for them, we hail them. Now they are back, no payments.
We are pleading on behalf of them. Let Nigeria do something about it, so that if the whole world see it, it will be a national disgrace to us.
Seeing these children hanging to protest, I'm not happy at all, because these children are trying for our country, not today, not one, not two. Just count the number of cops they are bringing. So it's a purpose as if I should share my tears and cry now. Please, I'm pleading to the government to come to their aid, to pay them their money, so that this country can move forward.
Samna, I wonder if you've been able to speak with any officials, and you did talk about the anger of the ladies. I wonder how angry they are at the sports minister who said he did not expect any victory on their part and so no monies was made available for them.
Well, they wouldn't want to speak on camera. They just spoke with us off the camera, and they are saying that it's unfortunate that the Nigerian government is treating them this way, that yes, there are some challenges in terms of the fact that the administration of football is said to be independent of the Nigerian government, because that is what the FIFA rule says. But what of the national pride? These girls say they want the national pride to be taken into focus first before whoever needs to be blamed. Now, unfortunately for us too, as journalists covering the National Assembly, it's too early right now for the officials. You know, today's the budget presentation by Mr. President, so most of the officials are not yet around, and then the security has been tightened up to the extent that only those who have critical issues to address at the National Assembly will be here, and that includes the federal lawmakers, the presidential team, the journalists covering the National Assembly, and security officials that will be, you know, facilitating all of this. Now, if we had a situation whereby it's on a day that there's a Senate plenary or House of Representative plenary, what usually happens is that the Senate President will either come himself and address them as the chairman of the National Assembly, or the Speaker will act for him, or they will send their chairman of sports committees, respective sports committees, and all of that. But unfortunately, today is not a plenary day, today is a special day, and the federal lawmakers will start coming on at about 10 a.m. So that's the situation right now from National Assembly Complex.
Wow. All right, Sumner, this is where we'll leave you for now. We don't have all the time, but we'll keep a tab on you on developments from there. Thank you, Sumner Sambo.
It's talk time. Now, at least 565 billion recovered from looted funds has been included in Nigeria's 2017 budget to be presented on Wednesday.
Which is today to the National Assembly. Now, the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Udoma, disclosed this when he led other top government officials to answer questions on the revised 2016 to 2018 medium-term expenditure framework before a joint committee of the Senate. Now, TVC News' Sumner Sambo, our correspondent there, reports on this.
Weeks after senators described the financial document as empty, top officials of the Nigerian government are before the legislators to defend the revised MTEF, a document upon which the 2017 budget is premised. The government says it has now set new parameters for subsequent budgets. In the revised document, next year's economic growth is projected at 2.5%, down from the earlier 3.02%, while the budget deficit was also reduced from 2.4 trillion naira to 2.3 trillion naira.
In the original MTEF, we envisaged and projected a growth rate of 3.02%. It's clear that that cannot be achieved given the recession. So we've actually brought down our projections to 2.5%. The oil price, $42.50, is our projection for next year. We believe it's a reasonable projection.
The deficit has come down from 2.438 trillion to 2.356 trillion.
The government says it is shopping for various sources of funds to finance the budget deficit, especially through recoveries from looted funds, such as the $320 million Abacha loot, monies recovered by anti-graft agencies, and remittances by agencies that had not been doing so in the past.
What is coming in cash is 272 billion. In addition, we have identified unremitted surpluses of 562 billion, for which demand notices have been issued to the various agencies, and we're holding daily meetings with them where we're agreeing repayment plans.
And I think that this committee and the Committee on Finance require a detailed submission of all those agencies that make up account for the governance of the billion.
In the revised MTEF document presented by the executive, the official exchange rate has been increased from 290 naira to $1 to 305 naira to $1. But senators say this figure is unrealistic
They are calling on President Muhammadu Buhari to further increase this figure to meet up with market realities. Sam Sambo, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, that's the background. Now, but let's lay the foundations in here. In December last year, President Muhammadu Buhari presented a 6.08 trillion naira budget to a joint session of the National Assembly with the theme, the budget of change. Now, that was uniquely coined in line with the mantra of the political party, the APC at the time, that huge budget of change may not have changed so many things in the Nigerian economy, or it may have, depending on the position you take, but we won't go into that right now.
No, absolutely not. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari will, in about 2 hours from now, present the 2017 budget before a joint session of the National Assembly, his second budget presentation since he assumed office.
Well, the budget is meant to complement the present budget of change, even though it is yet to have its own coinage. But there are indications that the president believes this budget will take Nigeria out of recession.
Okay, maybe it will be called recession-proof budget. Now, high hopes really here, but we will wait and see what the president would be presenting later today. But first, let's listen to the Senate President, Bukola Saraki, when he read the president's letter on the floor of the Senate.
Presentation of the 2017 budget proposal and plans to lead Nigeria out of recession. I crave the kind indulgence of the National Assembly to grant me the slot of 10:00 hours on Wednesday, the 14th of December 2016, to formally address a joint session of the National Assembly on the 2017 budget proposal and our plans to get the country out of recession. Please extend, Mr. Senate President, the assurances of my highest regards to the distinguished senators as I look forward to addressing the joint session. Signed, Muhammadu Buhari.
All right, that was the Senate President of Nigeria reading out the letter of the President to the National Assembly. We have joining us now to discuss this issue an economist, someone who has been at the forefront of letting Nigerians know how these things should be done when it comes to finances and economy. We have Henry Boyo in the house. It's good to see you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. We also have a financial analyst here, Akin Omishade. Akin, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Now, before we go into the discussions proper, let's go on a short break and we'll come back to dwell on this. Stay with us on TVT Breakfast.
Right, you're welcome back. It's talk time and we're looking at the performance of the 2016 budget. Like they say, if you don't know where you're coming from, you might hardly be able to define where you're going. So we'll be doing this with Henry Boyo, an economist, and Akin Omishade, who is a financial analyst. Good morning again, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Well, as at October this year, we heard from the Finance Minister, Kemi Adeosun, that the 2016 budget had performed up to 50%. Another person, in the person of the Budget and Planning Minister, Udo Odoma, says 75% performance. Well, what would you say to this first off? What's your take on the overall performance of the 2016 budget?
Well, excuse me. I don't think it's appropriate to evaluate the budget just in terms of nominal spending.
Okay.
In other words, how much you have spent. It doesn't matter when you are fixated on the nominal value, what the quality of actualization or implementation of that particular sector of the budget you have achieved. So I think just to say that we have achieved 75% should be translated to mean we have spent 75%. Whether it is meaningful in terms of its impact, it's a different ball game entirely, especially when the 75% nominal income is predicated in 20 2016 budget, when the exchange rate was just what? 197.
Yes.
And then you ended up the year with 300 naira or thereabout, official, parallel 500. You will find that in real terms, you probably have achieved less than 50% of the expectation from the value that you put to the budget figure a year earlier. So we should be very careful about celebrating implementation on the platform of the monetary value of what was spent. And I suspect that if that lesson hasn't been learned, the 2017 budget will probably be a replication of this, how do I say it, this lack of attention to details.
Okay, we'll get there. I'll come to Akin on this now, but remember, well, it's a point of information that the president is supposed to present the budget to the National Assembly at 10. He has been shifted to 12 noon now. But we'll certainly be following that to bring you update and bring you up to speed with the developments at the National Assembly. Aki, let me come to you on this. If we have to evaluate the budget, not necessarily on monetary, how much has been spent now, let's focus on the impact of it, because we know that the recession the signs of recession has been on even from the beginning of the year and on to now. There were promises that if this budget was implemented, it could cushion the effect or impact of the recession in the first place. So when it comes to the impact, how far has the budget gone?
Well, interestingly, just before we came on, we were discussing this, and it's an F9.
It's a what?
It's an F9.
F9?
Yes, it is.
Whoa.
Wow.
It is. Whoa. It's a dismal failure. And if you look at the indices, you said the impact. How many businesses have taken flight out of Nigeria? Before this budget was implemented, we had so much capital coming in for businesses, for infrastructural developments. Between the time of the implementation of this budget and date, we've had a decrease of 53% of foreign direct investment. That begins to tell you. This budget was predicated on 197. Today, the dollar to the naira is almost north of 500. That begins to tell you the impact. The amount of borrowing that was expected on this budget to kickstart or refloat the economy, we never got it. And that tells you that there was no confidence in the budget. The cost of importation, we don't produce, we don't export any finished product, as it were. The cost of importation has skyrocketed. The naira that you had in your bank account pre the budget does not have the same value it has today. The common man on the street expecting the change that this budget promised or hoped for is not experiencing it. So when you're talking about the impact, it's swinging south rather than north, and there's no hope.
Ooh,
so
that's a very scary outlook there. I remember earlier this year, Mr. Boyo, when we had a chat on the budget looking forward, you actually expressed concern that the naira could be hovering somewhere around 1,000 to the dollar.
I wouldn't forget that.
Yes, thankfully it's nowhere near there. But you still have concerns that come 2017, that might likely be the case. And, you know, like Akin said, the indices F9, oh, wow, that's a bit...
Well, it might sound harsh, but that's the reality. I think Akin has said it right, but I need to correct. I did not say the naira would be 1,000 by December. I said it would be 500 by December and 1,000 by 2007 if we continued in the same way.
So you're spot on.
I'm spot on. I mean,
I think you should take a bet on that now. Put a wager on that now.
So, but that notwithstanding, the reality, of course, is that you generally measure the welfare social welfare by certain well-defined indices. And probably one of the most critical of these, of such indices is inflation. If your salary, for example, has not increased by 20% this year, you will definitely be having some pinch at home. Inflation is a plague, it's a very serious disease, and one stroke kills 170 million people at the same time. And we should be very, very careful that we don't, in a rush to say we take ourselves out of recession, actually plunge us into recession. A situation where inflation is already trending at near 20%.
Yeah, 18.3.
Absolutely. And you know, the common definition or the general definition or the classical definition of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. In that case, if you already have the cup that is full and is giving you a problem, it is no pride, it is no achievement for you to say you are pouring more water into that cup. And this, unfortunately, will be the reality by the time the 2017 budget will be passed and implemented, apart from the fact that the 2017 budget, like earlier budgets, was supposed to be predicated on the medium-term expenditure framework. The House of Representatives, as well as they've already sent it back and say it's not. And they've also expressed their displeasure at the level of reporting with regards to the performance indices in the 2016 budget. So this division is still on the ground. To my knowledge, I don't know if it's been resolved. So it seems rather inappropriate for us to be talking of even submitting a budget when these issues have not been thoroughly resolved. I can understand wanting to say, let me submit the budget or present the budget before December so people can say I presented it. But in reality, if the proper thing has to be done, the budget should have been presented for evaluation and reconciliation with the MTEF as early as September. As it is now, the National Assembly will be going on break in the next 1 week or so. They would come back and start talking about something that there isn't a resolution or harmony with regards to the critical indices which are predicating this particular 2017 budget.
All right, Mr. Boyo, we have some more information for our viewers. Now, the president in 2015 stated that his administration projected a revenue target of 3.86 trillion naira for 2016. Recurrent expenditure of 2.43 trillion and a proposed spend of 1.66 trillion naira on foreign and domestic debt servicing. Okay.
Now the revenue has projected to, or was projected to come from value-added tax, company income tax, independent revenue, all related revenue and custom duties. Well, the projections seem not just right. Let's listen to what budget specialist Ibrahim Sheleng said on this.
We've had budgets, you know, fantastic budgets, great ideas, but the issue has always been implementation. I mean, we might as well just write off 2016 because as far as I'm concerned, nothing happened. I think we probably had about 20% implementation, if I'm correct. A lot of the issues were based on, you know, plugging loophole or gaps or loopholes, but we didn't see much expenditure, which is probably what's gotten us into, you know, this recession we're in now.
Well, that's Sheleng's opinion of the budget, but then it is anchored on 6 pillars: economic reforms, infrastructure, social development, governance and security, environment, state, regional development. All these were critical demands that Nigerians were yearning for at that time, and so they would want it to ask if indeed the dictates of that budget were met. Now, let me come to you, Akin. Now, we have heard the finance minister at different times saying that a chunk of the budget will go into capital expenditures so that at least it's going to reflate the economy and bring and stimulate something, as the case may be. If we have to look into infrastructure, how bad has this budget, even though you give it F9, but what effort would you say has really been put there to tag the budget to infrastructure?
Well, nothing. What infrastructural projects have you seen? What developments have we seen take place? Look at our airports. There's been no change. Look at our teaching hospitals. In the budget, if you read the last budget critically, our teaching hospitals only had over 3 billion. 17 teaching hospitals were earmarked for investment. 17 of them, 3 billion. State clinic had 3.06 billion. Is that development? Is that infrastructural growth? None. The budgets had a theme of moving to non-oil areas, sectors, agriculture, manufacturing. We had Inunson. What happened to Inunson this year?
Okay. So many questions there, but you will have to answer those questions.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk more on this. All right, welcome back. We're looking at the 2016 budget. How far so far? Our guest in the studio, Henry Boyo, economist, and Akinwumi Shade is a financial analyst. Now, looking at the 2016 budget, you have talked about the fact that we cannot get so fixated on the numbers and how much has been spent and all of that. But what about the social intervention programs? 500 billion set aside for that. The school feeding program that is already working in some states of the Federation, and of course the employment of some 500,000 people. These are meant to actually drive the economy in the area of agriculture, health, and
manufacturing.
Yeah, manufacturing.
Well, they say the taste of the pudding is in the eating. If all these achievements that you have listed, if they were real, we probably wouldn't be in the situation in which we find ourselves at the moment. A budget is a plan that is expected to drive the economy. But when ab initio, you have already skewed your budget in favor of recurrent expenditure. Well,
the 2016 budget was more capital expenditure than
I think
capital was more than the recurrent.
Yes, it's a question of really by how much.
Okay.
The reality is that in the situation in which we find ourselves at the moment, as a developing country, we are expected to spend about 60% on capital and 40% on recurrent. But it's the other way around, despite the fact that we have been told that there are a lot of leakages within the system which need to be plugged. That if these leakages were plugged, the recurrent expenditure would fall. But we have never seen a fall in the recurrent expenditure, despite the thousands and thousands of ghost workers who have been exorcised from the system, despite the loopholes that have presumably also
with the TSA
and what have you. You should not be having gains or reductions in terms of recurrent expenditure from those areas as savings, and yet you keep extending your, especially at a time when your economy is bursting at the seams because of too much money. You know, last year when Mr. President, even before Mr. President presented his budget 2016, the central bank had already projected that in the year 2016, there is likely to be a need to mop up 6 trillion naira from the system, meaning that the liquidity surplus is so great that if we don't do it, we'll have a problem. Even though they have done it, they actually went out and borrowed 6 trillion naira in the course of 2016, but inflation unfortunately remained towards 20%. So you have a situation where if you are not careful and you don't recognize these details, you will find that you are making an assessment on the budget that is not realistic. So first of all, the capital expenditure ratio should have been turned right on its head. Secondly, the recurrent expenditure should actually be less if all these savings were being applied. And thirdly, you wouldn't also be willfully committing yourself to such a heavy debt burden. You're already spending close to 30 or 35, 40 naira out of every 100 naira that you earn in order to service your debts. But this particular 2017 budget, they are celebrating that it's also going to be bigger than ever, 7 trillion naira or something like that.
Yes.
Whereas in real terms, 7 trillion naira compared to the 4.5 trillion naira budget of 2014-2015, the 2014-15 budget is in real terms much more valuable than your 7 trillion naira. Because of what? Inflation at 20%, devaluation of your currency by almost 50% or thereabouts, and further devaluation also expected within 2017. Plus also the indices which you have adopted for your exchange rate naira is totally out of sync with reality. Because why? There is still an imbalance. The naira rate of exchange is unfortunately skewed in favor of the dollar. It has always been so, and there is no attempt to do this. It's not the amount of money that you spend in a budget that is the actual benefit you get. It's other indices that drive growth. And certainly 20% rate of inflation doesn't drive growth. Okay, an exchange rate that is likely to depreciate by another 50% or so in the course of, because the fundamental reasons that cause this imbalance have not been addressed. Or are you going to talk of a cost of funds, which is critical to the real sector? You see, it is the failure of the banking system, not the banking system, of the CBN to create an enabling environment that makes it necessary for cost of funds to be in excess of 20%. Nobody should tell you that you will succeed as a country if cost of funds remain in 20%. Your goods will continue to be
I'm sure
very
you have
uncompetitive.
something to say about this. Now, of course, we've heard that this 2016 budget will still, perform or function till May 2017.
I doubt it. I very much doubt it. How are you going to perform it? Where are the indices? Where's the catalyst for growth? None. Where are we going to, what are we going to export? How are we going to reflate the economy? It's deflating at a speedy rate.
Are we an economy? We had a lawyer here, though he's a lawyer, he's not an economist, who said once that Nigeria is not an economy.
Oh, that's a misnomer. We have an economy. It might not just be recognized, or it might not just be doing what it's supposed to be doing. We have an economy. We produce. I mean, we generate income. It's just that we, just like Mr. Boye said, we are spending more than we are actually bringing in. I mean, look at presently. We spent over 54 billion servicing debts. There was a time under a former president, our external debt was 39 billion. Year in, year out, that was reduced. But presently, and with what I've read about the 2017 budget, we're going to be borrowing over 600 billion.
Naira or dollar?
Naira. Okay. On what? That's the issue. You have a budget, it's a plan. We had development plans. What is the plan in this budget? None. We are borrowing to do what? Those are the questions that we need to start asking. We are borrowing to do what? And when we say we are closing the gaps on leakages, okay, the leakages or the monies we've saved, well, what have we spent it on? Are you spending it on building a brilliant road network? Are you spending it on? Look at Germany. Germany is a technological advanced country. It went and it invested in technology universities and colleges. What have we done here? Look at our teaching hospitals. How many medical doctors are we producing? How many artisans are we making them enabled to become better artisans? None. So how are we going to kickstart it? Wow. So my concern is this budget has a lot of questions to answer. And just like Mr. Boye, we need to go back to the basics. We need to go back to the fundamentals. The CBN governor has to, and the Minister for Finance, and I'm sorry, Mr. Ododoma, they need to go back and sit down. We call it a zero-based budgeting. Fine. There's been training so far to get us to presenting a good budget, but the House of Reps has rejected it. We can't borrow.
Okay, we won't end this show without bringing in Foladele to find out what Nigerians are saying about the 2016 budget. Fola.
Fola, good morning.
Good morning, Ngozi. Good morning, Henry, and good morning, Hakeem. Okay, so much talk about budget this year, but how much action? And let's see what
That's a big question.
Yeah, very big question. Let's see what some Nigerians are saying about the 2016 budget. Bright Igbin says 2016 budget is the most unimpactful budget in Nigeria history. Osi Nkem says, as Nigerian president, if Nigeria is a functioning society, we should be asking about our 2016 budget, which we are doing. Sarafa Ibrahim says, if governance had meant service in Nigeria, the 2016 budget implementation details should be availed to Nigerians before 2017 presentation. Style Life says, 2016 budget would officially go down as the most useless in the history of Nigeria. 6 trillion naira spent and the effect cannot be felt. Nigeria's Voltron says, if 2016 budget brought recession and famine, 2017 budget may bring depression and drought. I hope not. Kechuku says, Nigeria had a budget in 2016. And the last one here from Yomi, he says, 2017 budget of progression. This will be the budget that will bring Nigeria out of recession. President Buhari will do it again. So
that's giving hope to Nigerians.
Yomi is hopeful. Aki, what do you think about Yomi's tweet? I don't know if he's a rapper or a prophet, but he says 2017 budget of progression, the budget that will take Nigeria out of recession.
Well, someone once said that opium, hope is the opium of the oppressed.
Wow.
Well, I don't have my crystal ball here today. If I had it, I would have looked at it and I'll give you a prediction.
Projections.
Yes.
Maybe you'll bring it tomorrow because we'll have to continue this discussion. Actually,
I will remember to bring that.
All right, Fola. Thank you.
Fola, thank you.
All right, now the president is expected to present the budget for 2017 today, and Akin, I'm still going to stay on you. I'll stay with you on this. There was the arrangement or want of government to borrow about $30 billion.
Yes.
If that were approved at that time, because it seemed like this is the panacea. This is how it is on this premise rather, that the budget was going to function.
Yes.
If it were agreed upon,
yes,
how would it have impacted on inflation? Because I know Henry Boyo has always been talking about excess liquidity in the economy. How would that have compounded the issue?
Well, if that had come in, what would have expected is that money would have been spent on infrastructural projects.
Okay.
And what will happen is you start spending. And I believe you spend yourself out of recession.
Okay.
There's just no way you can do it. You just have to spend. That is expected to reflate or kickstart. So it's not you have money chasing too much money chasing too little few goods. That is what Mr. Boye was saying. But if you now have monies not on chasing goods, but on producing goods, producing services, producing items, then what do you have? You have more products, more goods, more services that your money can chase. That should have been the expectation. Now you have a hospital that you want to build, you have a car manufacturing plant that you want to build. That means, don't forget that you're not just building the structure, there are other components that will go into it. So now you have many services, many ancillary services. So those monies will now be chasing those services, and then you have a better situation.
You have the last word.
Well, I've agreed with Akin all along, but I'll have to disagree with him on the issue of spending your way out of recession.
Okay. But isn't that what the book says?
Well, the book doesn't say that when the cup is full, you pour in more water into it, okay? You have a situation that, look, I told you that in 2016, the government budgeted 6 trillion. In 2016, the CBN budgeted to mop up 6 trillion. You understand what I'm saying? So even if the government decides to budget 10 trillion today, the CBN will mop up 10 trillion. Let's understand where we are going here. So let's be warned, and so we don't keep believing that you can actually spend your way out of recession when you have inflation already trending towards 20-something%, when you have cost of funds. The interventions you are making is an excuse to hide the fact that you are not able to bring down cost of funds. And cost of funds cannot come down when inflation is at 20% and liquidity surplus makes you to borrow what you budget. I mean, this is crazy.
Okay.
So we'll have to leave
All
it
right,
there.
we'll have to leave it there. In fact, after the presentation of the budget today, I guess we're going to have a lot to talk about as we get along.
Tomorrow.
So it's going to be much about budget in the next few days. Heriboyo, thank you very much for coming. And Aki, thank you very much for coming as well. Thank you. All right, this is where we come to the end of the edition today. Budget presentation, we'll be expecting that in the next few hours. By 12 noon Nigerian time, the president will be at the National Assembly to present the 2017 budget. We'll be following up on that and letting you know the developments there. Have a great day ahead. I am Mike Okwocha. You can follow me for updates using my Twitter handle at @MOkwochaTVC.
Yes, and it's at Ngozi Alebu TVC. Do have a beautiful day. See you again Thursday.